All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to Wellness Wednesday. I am so excited about my conversation today. We are joined here by one of my favorite people, Nikki Bonds, and we're going to be talking about core values. So Nikki, first off, thank you for being here. And why don't you just take a second and tell everyone who you are and where you're from?
Well, Jordan, thank you for having me. My name is Nikki Bonds. I am a Rainmaker for Bonds Realty Group. I live in Buford, Georgia, which is just northeast of Atlanta.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, thank you, Nikki. I'm really excited about this conversation.
Me too.
All right. So we're talking about core values. And for those in the audience who may not know what core values are, Nikki, how would you describe what core values are to everybody?
Jordan, for me, they're just a set of beliefs and ideals that are kind of like a compass for life that guide you in decisions, and especially when they're tough ones.
So a compass in life that guides you through decisions. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Very cool. And so as it relates to people figuring out what those values are for them, how would you coach them through that, Nikki? How do people figure out what their values are?
Well, there's a couple of ways. I had the privilege to go through a core values exercise with you that was incredibly impactful and insightful. And, I have always known that faith and family were two of my core values. And there were other things that I knew were important to me, but I wasn't exactly sure how to narrow those down into words that I could then define or feelings that I could define. Stewardship is another one. And so going through that exercise of sitting in an exercise of words that were laid out that I could narrow them down to is so incredibly helpful. I think sometimes people will know some of their core values, but then having a guide to help them really define some of the others is incredibly helpful.
Sweet. I love that. And we will post the exercise that she's referring to in the comments section in the Facebook group. So if you're not familiar with that exercise and would like to work yourself through it, we'll put that there. And just know if you're going to do it right, it's going to take you a minimum at first of 20 to 30 minutes. But all the instructions and everything that you'll need will be there in that post. So the first step, right, is knowing your values. Yes. Nikki. So I now know my values. I understand what they are. I've given them a word and the definition of each word. What's the next step? Once I know my values, then what?
Own them with conviction. Yes.
What does that mean, to own your values?
Well, it just means that if they are going to be your values, then you have to unashamedly own them and be okay that they are your values. It's one thing to say that your family comes first, but when you have to make a decision in a moment to put your family first, you've got to unashamedly do that. And especially in this industry, in this business, that comes up a lot. And so sitting in a space where you can really say, yes, these are my values and I own them and I'm okay that they're my values, I think is really important.
So when you're owning the values, it seems like, Nikki, something that you kind of alluded to there is that it's not always easy to own your values. Is that right?
No. My values aren't always popular, especially when it comes to my faith. It causes me to go against the grain sometimes. It causes me to make decisions that aren't popular. But at the end of the day, I have to lay my head on the pillow and know that I felt like I pleased the Lord, feel like I was true to who I say that I am to my family and true to who I say that I am to myself.
Got it. So is that kind of the way that you coach yourself through the discomfort of living your values, even when they're not popular? Is that you kind of think of it just, I mean, the way you just said that is it's basically like three lenses, right? You look at your family, you look at your faith, and then you look at the relationship that you have to yourself. Is that how you coach yourself through it, even when it's hard?
Yes. And I mean, it's not always comfortable by any stretch. But I'm setting an example for my kids. It's just at the end of the day, if I'm who I say that I am, and believe me, I don't get it perfect all the time, but that is what I strive for.
Okay. Okay. So progress over perfection is what we're
Definitely.
looking for, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So I figure out what my values are.
Hmm.
I'm going to own my values,
Yes.
even when it's uncomfortable. And I'm going to develop a system for that when it is uncomfortable in the moments of discomfort. Is there anything else that you would share with people as it relates to the core values and using them as a compass for decisions?
Yes. Find a tribe of people that own the same values that you do,
Mm,
and stick together with them. When decisions get tough or things get hard, having those people that you can call on that have the same values is super, super important. And I do have those people in my world that I can, call up when I'm needing to make a tough decision or a not popular decision or just, any decision. And so having that support system is also very important.
yeah, that reminds me of something that I share often in my free life or when I'm coaching someone who may be going through a business challenge, a personal tragedy, and yet it's engineering your village,
Yes.
right? So we all have the ability to selectively surround ourselves with people who believe what we believe, that bring out the best in us. And that can be a very negative force and a very positive force, right, Nikki?
Yes. Yes.
Um, and, I think especially if for those of you that may be going through a hard time, one of the things that I always share with people is, and she just alluded to it, is rally your support system.
Mhm.
And specifically for you, it seems like you're rallying your support systems around your values. Is that right?
It is. And, Jordan, I always have to know where to go and where not to go. And oftentimes, where I don't need to go for me personally is probably social media.
Mm,
It's just like I need to stay to the places that I know will give me the encouragement that I need or the truth that I need. Sometimes it's hard truth and sometimes it's, encouraging truth. But I think also just knowing where you need to go and where you need to stay off of is super important as well.
yeah, there's some really great nuggets right there, Nikki. I mean, both from the perspective of, I think that as adults, especially those of us, and I know you're one of these people because if you don't know this about Nikki, she's also coached by one of my all-time favorite people who happens to be the great Kate Simon. And if I ever just need some inspiration or encouragement or just some truth, Kate Simon is definitely a person that can
Yes.
give both of those to me.
Yes.
But as adults that are into self-mastery, and this is something that I've really discovered over the last 3 to 4 weeks, is that we have to be really clear on what does and doesn't work for us.
Yes.
Right. And I think that that's what you're really going towards, which is I know where to go and I know where not to go.
Yes.
I know what works for me and I know that what doesn't. Right.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
And I love that about seeking truth. And I would imagine that when you're looking at your village, that is what you mean by that, Nikki, that you find people who are going to tell you the truth, even if you don't want to hear it.
Yes, it's definitely, there are people in my business lane, in my spiritual lane, in my health journey lane that will tell me not what I want to hear, but what I need to hear.
Mhm.
And those are super valuable people in my world.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a trick to that, everybody. The trick is that you have to find people that will tell you the hard truth, but they also have what's best for you in mind. There's
Yes.
a lot of people out there that will tell you the hard truth, but they don't want the best for you,
Right.
right? Wow, that's really insightful, Nikki. I love that. So you have the core values that you elicited right through My Free Life and this process, and you've taught us, how to know them, own them, and you've got to be okay also with people not always being thrilled or maybe having to disappoint people with your core values. But I was also told by my team that you did something really cool with your core values with your team,
Yes.
and that there's a process that you followed that we should all hear. So would you mind walking us through that, Nikki?
Yes. So, as you know, I brought the whole team to My Freed Life, which was just a fantastic experience. And so we all went through the core value exercise together, and we had amazing conversation about it. And so I wondered what it would look like if we went through that core value exercise together and determined what the core values for our team were. So we came back from My Freed Life, and the first thing we did was we just were openly sharing about what our core values were personally, and it was amazing to hear that from each team member. And so we shared that. Then we got blank worksheets for our core values, and I just had them kind of sit in them again because you mentioned the first time that you go through it, you probably need 20 or 30 minutes, and I would say yes, and you probably are going to want to do the worksheet once, and then you're going to probably want to do the worksheet again because it's really insightful. And so I asked the team the next time that we met, which was meeting number 2, to bring all of their worksheets together. And then I asked them this first question. I said, in every family, in every community, in healthy relationship, there's give and take. And so from your core values, what is the value that you feel like you give to the team? And what is the value that you feel like the team gives to you? And this opened up really some amazing conversation among the team. And what I didn't anticipate happening, but I loved, was as each team member was going around the table, they would say, what I feel like I bring to the team is this. And then somebody else would jump in and say, oh my goodness, yes, I see this in you. And when you do this, it's fantastic. And I love that you do that. And so as people were sharing what they brought to the team, it was just this whole time of affirmation and encouragement and lifting each other up, which was so cool. And then as they were sharing, what they got from the team, that was also amazing just because some of the things that I've worked to bring to the team, I saw come to life around that table. And that was super encouraging for me as a leader. And so as we went around and we did that, and then we went to the whiteboard and we started saying, okay, we have all of these amazing words. Which ones jump out? And we just started throwing words up on the board. And a couple of them came right away. And then we had to kind of noodle through some of them as we talked about what the different words meant. So it took us a while, but we got to our 5, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience and exercise.
Okay, so there's so many questions I have about this, right? So you had first, so if because I'm thinking about it from sitting in the audience today, and I'm like, oh, I want to do this with my team, okay? And you laid out a specific process, but I want to make sure everybody understands the timeline.
Yes.
So the first step, Nikki, is that you brought everybody together and you said, I want to know what their individual values are. Is that right? And
that was meeting 1. Yes.
Okay. So
yes.
Meeting 1 is where you had everyone share or work through the exercise individually and elicit their own values.
In fairness, they had already kind of done that because we had been through My Free Life. But yes, if somebody was doing this from step 1, yes, have them go through that exercise personally first.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So then did you go straight to the team values in the same meeting? Or
No,
was that in a separate meeting?
it was. I gave them the core values worksheet again in case, because I did want them to have an opportunity to rework it, because I do think, like I mentioned, you need to sit in it a little bit. So week 1 was kind of talking about their values. I gave them the worksheet in case they wanted to redo it, because some of them were just like, my paper's messy and I really want to do this over. So then week 2 was everybody bringing their personal core values to the table.
Got it.
And then we asked the give and take question.
Got it. Okay. And so from the give and take question, that's where it went up to the whiteboard.
Yes.
And then, as we say in My Freed Life, you consolidated and eliminated.
Yes.
Until you got to your top 5 as a team. But all of those 5 are what the team expressed. What I want everybody to get here is authorship is ownership.
Yes.
And what she did not do is come out of My Freed Life and say, I'm the leader of the company, I'm the owner of the company, and these are our values. You didn't do that.
No.
You had them as part of the process, and there was this affirming part too, where people would affirm, like, this is what I give to the company, and others would say, yeah, I totally see it. And so it was like almost like coding the culture, so to speak, right?
Yes. And what was really neat is when we went to the whiteboard, and I got my notes here, I just wanted to share this with you. One of the words that immediately jumped out was faith, like top, almost everybody. Some of them said that had to do with their, personal relationship with the Lord. That's what that word meant to them. Some of them said, you know what, that is my faith in this team, and that you guys always have my back. And I know that no matter what, I can trust you guys. Some of them said that faith to them meant clients putting their faith in us and knowing that we're going to take care of them. Some of them said that it's faith in trusting the process. We've got systems and processes that we know, even when things don't seem to be going right, if we just put our faith in the process, things are going to work out. And so what was so amazing is that even though that's one of our core values, it means something a little bit different to every person. And so that was really something special. And as we kind of worked through each word, that was the case. But everybody could rally around all of the values, and that was neat.
Very cool. Okay. And so you said faith was one. What were the other 4, Nikki?
Family, integrity, growth, and impact.
Faith, family, integrity, growth, and impact.
Yes.
Okay. So that's the core value. Those are the core values, I should say, of your organization.
Yes.
And how long ago was it that you did this?
We finalized this we did this about a month ago.
Okay. About a month ago. And since you did this, what's been kind of the downriver impact of you eliciting the core values in the team?
There have been 2 things that have really kind of already jumped out. And one is just a unification process within the team. We have this thing, we have to figure out an acronym for everything. And so we went through this process. FFIGI, FIGI is how we pronounce it. But what's so neat is that as we'll be talking about something, they'll say, well, that's FIGI, that's part of our core values. And so it's just something that we have been referencing already in conversation. And I love that. And Jordan, something that I love probably even more is that it has empowered the agents. So one of my agents had a situation where they had to choose to part ways with a client. And she said, Nikki, based on our core values conversation, I knew that you would be okay with my decision, because this person was asking me to do something that did not line up with the core values of our team. And I was so excited about that. And I said, you are absolutely right. And you should be really proud of yourself. And I'm proud of you for knowing that that was okay. And it was really neat.
Well, and there's a couple of things just from that I think that are worth highlighting, Nikki. One is that your values are magnifying your leadership, right? Like you're able to use them, and it's essentially not just a compass for you to make decisions, but for the people that you're in business with, your business family, to make decisions, right?
Yes. Yes.
And the other thing, though, that I think is worth highlighting, and is that when you live your core value of faith, which is the lead value for you personally and the lead value for you professionally, well, you have faith in that person that she made the right decision,
Yes.
right? Wow.
Yeah.
That's so good.
It's so good. This exercise for me, honestly, has probably been the highlight of this year, just because we sat around this table as a group and laughed and smiled, and it was amazing. And I know that we're going to take this and that we'll continue to talk around it, and it will just become part of our conversation on a daily basis. So I'm very grateful for it, and I know the team is too.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. Well, Nikki, one thing I wanted to ask you is just a shameless plug for those people sitting in the audience, especially those that have businesses. What would you say to them about whether or not they should take the My Freed Life course?
Take it. Take it, please. It was my team is still talking about it. We're like a bunch of Jordan groupies. We're trying to go find the next one so we can take it again. It was truly, though, seriously, incredibly impactful, and so grateful for the opportunity.
I love that. Yeah. And I know you were a big reason for us coming to Atlanta when we did. So I so appreciate your help with that. So, Nikki, as we start to kind of wind this down, um, what would you say are kind of your parting words of wisdom for those people who are listening as it relates to core values in their life or core values in their business?
I kind of think about, I have 3 kids. And so even though they're grown now, I tend to think back to the days when they were younger. And I think that for me, core values are kind of safe boundaries.
Mm,
And when I'm able to exercise them in my life, it's kind of like the boundaries that I set for my children when they were younger. That was safety for them. They knew the safe spaces that they could operate in. And when you really put your core values into play and you own them with conviction and you're confident about them, then they do create boundaries that you can walk comfortably in. And that feels good.
yeah, it reminds me of one of my favorite quotes. And I love telling this story how I remember when core values really showed up for me as an adult. It was like 2019, 2018. And the quote actually is from Roy Disney, Walt Disney's brother. And what he said was that when values are clear, decisions are easier. It's not decisions are easy, by the way. sometimes,
Yes.
sometimes, regardless of how clear your values are, decisions can still be difficult. But I'll never forget. I think it was 2018. I was at Mega Camp in Austin, Texas, which is a large Keller Williams event that we host once a year, and I wanted to get into this one mastermind, and it was Gary Keller's private mastermind, and I didn't want to sneak in. I wanted to earn my way into the room, and to do that as a coach, not as an agent in production. And I finally got the email that said, hey, we would love to have you. I saw the date. I got really excited. And I was actually standing next to a good friend of mine, Craig Zuber. And I said, oh, no, this would require me to stay another day in Austin. And I would miss the first day of school for my kids. And one of my core values is family. And I just was sitting there talking to him, and I'll never forget what he said. Is he just said, well, it's a good thing your values are clear. And the first day of school is a big deal in our household. If you follow me on Facebook, you know we have, like, I think at this point, like eight years of first days where we line up in the same order on our front porch. And it's really cool because you can see how our kids have grown and how I look a little older every year. And you know, I thought about it and I was like, well, I could just go home a day later and we could take the picture the next day and nobody would know. But then I realized, like, well, I would know and my kids would know.
Yeah.
And him saying, well, it's a good thing your values are clear, was just such an easy decision for me. I needed to go home. And that's what I did. And I missed the mastermind and I have never regretted it.
Yep.
I'm so glad that we have each of those pictures, no asterisk next to any of them, because I was home.
Yes.
So that's I think a great illustration as to how to let your values live. And Nikki, I so appreciate you, not just for the investment of time today. I know we're all better for the message that you shared, but it's for you to be the leader that you are in the real estate world. And just as a person, I know that I have gotten and grown better as a person just from knowing you. And so thank you from all of us for taking the time here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. All right, everyone. This is actually our last Wellness Wednesday of the year. And so actually, no, that's not right. We've got one more next week. Spoke out of turn. We've got one more next week. So thank you all for joining us. We'll be back here, same time, same place next week. Until then, live freed. Thanks, everybody.